Hey, what's going on everybody out there? I'm Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel. So let's get a little mystical today. Besides me wearing my Team Mystic shirt, let's talk about this game Pyre from Supergiant Games. Now, throughout this vlog review, I'm going to have a little bit of footage on here so you guys can see it. But if you guys want a written review of what I did for Pyre, there'll be a link in the description box below to my written review on thecoalition.com. So what exactly is Pyre? Pyre is a game that's done by Supergiant Games. They're the same people that did Transistor and Bastion, and it kind of borrows elements from like sports games, but throws a whole fantastical and mystical element into it. Now, I'm going to try to summarize the story of Pyre as best as I can, without getting into too much spoilers, but give you guys a general idea. Basically, you control a guy that's named a reader, and he's able to read, or he or she, again, depending on who you are, is able to read books. And in the world of Pyre, it's kind of outlawed to be illiterate. Or again, they want everybody to be illiterate. The exchange of information, being able to read books is not allowed. And by people that do that or, break the law or do any sort of crime, they're thrown into this area kind of called the Downhills, I believe it's called. But it's like a purgatory and a place where all these outcasts kind of like linger around and serve their sentence for however long they have to stay there in order for the, based on the crime that they did. Now, for people that actually want to get out of the Downhills and want to get out of this purgatory, they have to be able to participate in this kind of contest called the Rites. Now, the Rites happens every so often. Think of it kind of like a contest where you're playing like a fantastical version of basketball, like 3-on-3 basketball, and you have to be able to earn your freedom. The winners of that actual Rites, that progress through all these different matches in this tournament, this competition, are able to regain their freedom and exit this area. And that's, again, pretty much a generalization of the story for Pyre. It gets a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of different information that's offered in the game's menus and all these different writings and stuff that you could kind of pick up as you're progressing through the story. And it gets very, very interesting overall, especially if you like Supergiant's previous work and you like the whole idea of this world building and this, weird kind of fantastical and unique style of universe that you could kind of get lost in. That's pretty cool. But let's talk about the gameplay of Pyre. How good is the gameplay? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, the controls of the game are really solid. Again, it's 3-on-3, very similar to like an NBA Jam where it's like 2-on-2, but in this case it's 3-on-3, fantastical basketball, where you basically have to take a giant sphere, or at least a magical sphere, and chuck it into an enemy's pyre, kind of like if it was a hoop. And you drain their pyre's intensity, and when it goes from whatever hit points it has to 0, that's when you win the matchup. And that's basically the flow of the entire game of Pyre, besides all the story building and the RPG elements of which you have. Which, speaking of which, the RPG elements, every time that you win a matchup, or at least win a right in the game, you gain enlightenment, which is like this game's version of EXP. And as you gain more, you're able to unlock different abilities and different skills that you can add on to your characters while you play the Rites that give you different bonuses and different positives and negatives and stuff that you could do throughout the course of each game. Now, there's over 20 characters to play in the game as you progress through the story mode. You actually also have a local multiplayer mode, which you don't need to complete the main campaign to kind of dive into that local multiplayer mode. You have all the characters unlocked from the very get-go, but there are a lot of playable characters. They each have their own little abilities. Some of them fly, some of them have big jumps, have really, powerful abilities in order to kind of like hinder the other team. Some of them which are able to kind of move around the map really quickly in order to dodge different auras and different stuff that is on the map. That's very cool. It offers a lot of uniqueness to each character that you put onto your team before each matchup. You're only able to choose 3 per matchup, so you have to kind of like pick and choose which ones you're going to kind of go with, especially if you're trying to level up specific characters, which, by the way, can take a little bit of a long time, I have to say. The leveling in this game, even though you could play like a bunch of matches, you might not necessarily level up a character all the way to max for one reason or another. And I thought that was a little bit annoying. The game does offer some little points here and there throughout the story, as well as other little bonus matches you could play to gain more enlightenment. But I felt like there needed to be more, or at least the bonuses needed to be more, so I could at least start leveling up all my characters up to max as I complete the game. Here's another thing about it. This game could be highly replayable. It could actually, you could go through the game multiple times, playing through the game, completing the Rites, and actually, reaching freedom or reaching enlightenment for each one of your characters. Every time that you complete the game, you gain another character's freedom, and you're able to kind of let them get out of the purgatory of which you're stuck in, which has some positive and negatives. The reason being is because every time that you reach that enlightenment status, or at least you finish the Rites, you lose that character, or lose the ability to play as that character for a time, and that could really suck, especially if most of the other characters that you have, you're not able to actually level up and actually get them to max level, especially towards the later matches. That could be a real pain in the ass. But besides that though, overall, the game flows pretty well. Again, it's very simple to understand, very easy to get into. Once you dive into a few matches, you'll be able to enjoy it head on. Now, let's get back to local multiplayer since I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Local multiplayer is the only thing that's offered in this game. There is no online play, and I feel that's a huge disappointment and a huge missed opportunity. The reason being why that's so bad is because the level of competitiveness that you could get in local multiplayer for this, and the way that the game, it really favors that back and forth between two players, really would have worked well online, especially being able to have like leaderboards and leagues and different stuff like that, which you exactly would find in like a sports-like game, because this fits so well with it. However, you don't get any of that with Pyre. You only get the local multiplayer, which is fine. You can play against another person, a second player, or you can play against the computer, which the computer's AI, to be honest with you, is kind of hit or miss. Again, there's some matches that are very, very easy. There's some matches that are kind of like a little bit harder, but not necessarily like hard to impossible, but they're kind of cheap in a sense, where the computer will just do some weird stuff. And then there'll be matches where you just like run all over the other team, and it's just, again, it's no challenge whatsoever, even with increasing the difficulty here and there. So there's some things that are kind of like a little bit hokey in there, but I feel like a lot of that could be remedied if you had access to more players to play against online, because obviously the computer AI is nowhere near as good, or will never be nowhere near as good as an actual human player. So that's a big missed opportunity there. But overall, there's still at least some good in this game that you're going to get a lot out of. Again, the campaign, or at least the main story, you could play constantly. You could play over and over and over again. It's highly replayable. The local multiplayer is there if you want to be able to use it or play with a friend like that. But without the lack of, or at least without the use of online multiplayer, you're not going to be really spending a lot of time with that. So as far as everything else is concerned, there isn't a lot of other extras that Pyre has. Again, if you really like Supergiant's previous work, if you loved Bastion, if you love Transistor, you're probably more than likely going to love this. What I will say, the sound design and the visuals are fantastic in this game. The visuals, very similar to Bastion as far as like the art style, the way the characters are designed, and the way they're drawn out, kind of like a painting or like a sketch. I always thought that was really cool, but the sound design is so freaking on point, it's ridiculous. The voiceover that you get from the main, I guess you could say the main kind of like, I guess like boss character or boss dude that voices over right before the rites begin and right before each matchup, where he's kind of like condescending to you, and he has this voice that's so imposing. It not only comes out as awesome and like epic, but it just really sets the tone of every single matchup. As you go through the rest of the game, as you start playing the later matchups, he gets less and less condescending, but he still is imposing with his voice, and I always thought that was so freaking cool. Whoever the voice actor is with that deserves a whole lot of praise, because they did a phenomenal job. Reminds me of the same way as far as like the level of quality of the voice acting that they did in Bastion. I love the narration in Bastion. It's so freaking good, and this is like on that level. It's really awesome. So overall, my thoughts on Pyre. I think it's really good. I think that if you like their previous work from Supergiant Games, definitely check it out. You might not like the idea of not being able to go online, but at least there's still a meaty single-player game for you to enjoy, and a little bit of local multiplayer for you to enjoy as well. So there you go, guys. That's my review of Pyre. Again, I have links in the description box below for all of you that you'll be able to check out my written review, as well as a whole bunch of other work that I have in there for you guys to enjoy. Leave me a comment down below in the comment section and let me know if you guys enjoyed Pyre, if you guys are going to be picking it up. It comes out tomorrow. I'm actually recording this Monday, the day before it comes out, because that's when the review embargo lifted up. But you guys will be able to check it out both on PlayStation 4 and on PC tomorrow, both on PSN and on the PC, like Steam and stuff. So you guys could definitely enjoy that. With that being said, though, guys, I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out. Stay epic, everybody.